Today's show starts right here at the intersection of Martin Luther King and Gorell Streets in downtown Greensboro. It's an area called South Side, and it's really quite charming. We're going to be talking about Lewis Street, and Lewis Street intersects and ends right over there where that white van is going now. And this is Dame's Chicken and Waffles. And there's a lot of people in there. Along this stretch of South Side, there's some shops and salons, including Manny's, a little cafe and market. So now we're over where Lewis Street picks up. And this is what I wanted to show you. A lot of people may not know there's this nice little park here. It's a small park, but it's got a beautiful fountain. And those buildings across the way there's businesses in the bottom of those buildings for many people. Some maybe just use it as an apartment, condo. And over here is where Lewis Street picks up. This would be the east end of Lewis Street. And that's where our walk is going to continue.
Welcome to Greensboro Viewmaster Crowdsourced TV, where we focus on the inner life of Greensboro. Sponsored by Crescent Productions, your pro resource for multi-camera live stream events. And by Artisan Advertising and Video, your a la carte advertising agency and video production house. Also sponsored by Film Machine, Highway 29 Motion Pictures, Fellow Travelers, Trep TV, and First Light Films.
One of their first real experiments of doing stuff off of campus. So,
hello, welcome to Greensboro Viewmaster for another episode. We're here at the Forge today with Joe Rotundi, the executive director. And if you haven't seen this place, you really should come out. You do like guest times when people can drop in.
Yeah. We have visiting hours, and we do community events each month. And I think September 9th, we have a Mend It Night coming up.
So, a Mend It Night.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you just come by if you have some clothes that you're trying to alter or repair. We have people here that can help you out with it. They'll give you pointers and have you do it yourself. It's not a place to drop off your clothes and have them fixed. But you can come by and learn how to do it yourself and see the space.
That's very cool. Very cool. So the Forge is a makerspace.
Yep.
Maybe we start by explaining what that means. And tell me about makerspaces in other cities. And it's a movement, right?
Yeah. Part of the kind of the maker movement as a whole.
Yeah.
So makerspaces, to be real general, they're basically gyms for makers. So people who like to build things, they subscribe to one of these spaces and they get 24/7 access, or they get access. You know, gyms work different ways, different places.
Right.
And they offer different kinds of equipment. This space, the Forge Greensboro, has a full wood shop, metalworking area, so welding, machining, sheet metal, 3D printers, laser engravers, textiles. We have some, I think I missed, laser engraver. Did I ever say laser engravers?
You said
I
textiles.
Did. Textiles?
Yeah.
And then we just started a ceramics area.
And a lot of computers.
And some we have a computer lab with some 3D modeling software, which is helpful in all those areas when you're trying to design what you're working on.
Absolutely.
But in more of a national or a global sense, they are about taking tools and technology and making them affordable to more people to create innovation, ideas, collaboration, and community.
So tell me this, I mean, there's been a lot of people with these skills working in industry or working at home, doing woodworking or wherever. What is it that happened that makerspaces would need to come about to fill a need or what is the need that it fills? Like, I'm of an age now where I'm actually thinking about what am I going to do for the next 10 or 20 years of my life.
Right.
And I have more time on my hands, right? And so I've gotten into some woodworking and furniture refinishing and that kind of thing.
which
Yeah.
is why I plan to join here so I can take it to another level.
Right.
And learn how to use some tools I don't have at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me like boomers
Yeah.
would be kind of one target audience
Yeah.
almost. But are there other target audience? What about millennials?
It's our target audience is really broad, and that's on purpose. We want, sort of like the social engineering part of the space, is we want people to interact coming from different backgrounds, different age groups, different economic brackets, from different experiences, whether that be professional or amateur, because people look at things from different perspectives, and when they meet each other and they start talking, they come up with new ideas. So we're trying to create a space that can have more of those happy collisions, if you will.
Right.
And how that kind of affects the community is, one, it's a place for these people to gather and interact and come up with new ideas. And sometimes that's a business, sometimes that's a product, sometimes that's just personal development and enrichment and learning about people inside the community. But for others, it's career development. It's finding a new way to interact with their community. And we find in the economy overall, there's a lot of new businesses starting up. Kind of a new wave in manufacturing is people want more customized things that are made by a specific person that have a story, preferably a story within their own community. So in here we have about 20 businesses that are doing that. They're little startups in the Forge. They're doing customized work for people in the community. They're kind of growing their business in here.
I had no idea. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Can you give us some examples of some things that have been created out of this space?
Well, one of our earliest success stories, is probably our biggest one to date, is Fusion 3, which is the 3D printer manufacturer. They started in part here at the Forge and in part in their parents' basement. So it was Chris Padgett. He was one of our founding members, so he helped us out. He started out in the original meetings in coffee shops when people were just trying to figure out how they could merge their garages together.
Right.
And he used this space a lot to train his employees. I think we've broken his 3D printers that he donated to us in just about every way imaginable. So he's hired a few employees through the space. He's, we've promoted him as much as we can because he makes a really amazing product.
That's awesome.
And that's developed, now we just moved to this space about a year and a half ago from a space that was half this size.
Right.
And we're able to have a better wood shop, a better metalworking shop. And since we did that, we've seen a couple of small furniture businesses sprout out of there. So Sam Rouse Furniture, he moved here because he could have access to the Forge. He'd never been to Greensboro before, just got out of school in Scotland for woodworking, and has come here and has been getting a lot of contracts through networking at the Forge. We have a member who has designed an entire line of audio furniture. He's from graph paper up to prototyping, up to his third design. He's prototyped them. He's about to launch
right
them.
Over there, right?
Yeah. So Mark Pinckney's 2 years line of audio furniture. So we're seeing a lot of entrepreneurial development here, and we like to brag about that. I have if there's a list of 20 I could go through. I don't know if you have enough time on this segment.
Well, I'm going to jump to a couple other things. I want to back up actually and ask about you.
Oh.
How you got involved with the Forge, and even how you came to Greensboro.
Well, it kind of boils down to one statement: is I have difficulty saying no to cool and interesting things, and that has led me into some trouble, and then also into some really, really great experiences in my life. I moved to Greensboro because I had some family up here I hadn't seen for a while, and I came to visit. I didn't really plan on staying. I got a job at Natty Green's, and I was bartender by trade.
That's where I've seen you.
There it is. I served about half the city of beer at Natty Green's, and it was what that's kind of what I want to do with my life. I really enjoyed talking to people, getting people to talk to each other who hadn't met at the bar. It was kind of secretly what I tried to do, is get two people who arrived by themselves to talk to each other. But when I moved to Greensboro and started doing that, I sort of fell for this really strong sense of community pride, and got to talking to people in the community who were sitting at my bar talking about interesting things they were doing. And having trouble saying no to cool things. I found myself volunteering for events that raise money for nonprofits, stumbling into a makerspace to help build things for those events, volunteering for that makerspace, blacking out somewhere in between, and waking up with a lot more responsibility.
Gotcha. And then you found your way into a very prominent position here as the guy in charge of the place.
Yeah, but I really feel like I do the same thing I did as bartending. I just get people to talk to each other. This space is really community-oriented. Before I was hired, it was run for 2 years completely on volunteer efforts. And that spirit, that culture is very much still alive. So I find myself more in a middle position trying to, as the hub of information, very much like I was as a bartender.
People may not know that where Greensboro Distilling is located now on Lewis was the original location for the first forge.
Yes, sometimes Google Maps will still bring you there, unfortunately. But yeah, that was our original location. And we were happy to move to a larger space, even though it was a sort of an awkward transition. But that sort of development, we're really excited about that development here on West Lewis Street because it has only lent towards bringing more people, more awareness to what we're doing down here. But also, that kind of collaborative, innovative spirit is not just here at the Forge. It kind of extends out into West Lewis Street. So we'll have members start talking about a project here and then go around the corner to say one of the brewery or to the distillery or to the bar and continue their conversation and make stuff for the bars or come up with new ideas.
Yeah, I know that Henry S. Campbell, who's here, we're going to talk to him in a minute. He mentioned that he'd made some kind of tap device for Greensboro Distilling. Is that right? And or he's planning to. And we have Carl Mize here. We're going to talk to him about textiles in just a little bit. And then there was Charlie. I know he made like the bathroom stall doors for PB and Java. Years back.
Yeah.
I walked in there, I was like, oh, these are Charlie's stall doors. Anyway, just the fact that there's a place where things can be made and that other businesses have access to those skills and those people, that's a really amazing resource.
Stalls at Boxcar were welded to by one of our welders here, Sean Kellogg as well.
Nice. Nice. And Henry's making some other things for Boxcar. We're going to talk to him about that.
Henry's like one of our accidental entrepreneurs. We find that a lot of folks come here just for hobby, just to experience things, and then people come in the space and ask them to make stuff. So they end up picking up all these odd end jobs and making a business, and that's what we're talking Henry into doing.
So how are we doing on time, Chuck?
5:15.
Okay. We could probably extend this for half an hour, but maybe we could have you back and talk about community.
Absolutely.
And because your perspective coming from out of town and sort of discovering community here, or Greensboro's version of that, what it looks like here, is to me a really fascinating question. But I want to touch on Andy Zimmerman's role on Lewis, because I did a walk through of Lewis Street yesterday, and I got clips of a lot of different buildings, and most of those Andy developed or redeveloped.
Yeah.
And he's been instrumental in the Forge too,
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. So you may have heard Andy say that he likes to cool up places. It's kind of a technical term his architects know of. It's like you get a building and cool it up. And his enthusiasm behind finding cool businesses is really how we came together. Andy learned about the Forge. The members had gotten to a point where they had started paying dues and were looking for a space. And Andy heard about the space, showed the group a building, and heard about what they wanted to do with it, and he fell in love immediately. Coming from a background and developing kayaks, his family, furniture industry. He'd been around makers his whole life. He won't admit it, but he's very much a maker himself. He still does some research and development for the outdoor industry, kind of one of his many side gigs. He has a lot of energy, but he fell in love with the space, and he's really been the factor that has made it happen. The buildings that we've been in, he's given us very affordable rent. He's not making any money off of us. He's actually quite the opposite. And he's on our board. He's given us a lot of just we could not replace the advice he's given us in marketing and company structure. He's here almost every day. You can see him kind of walking the block and coming in here just asking people what they're doing.
Right.
Just his eyes light up. He loves talking about it.
Yeah, yeah. What an asset for the city.
Absolutely.
That guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to have Henry join us, and we're going to walk him in
kicking me out?
and walk you off. And
All
thank
right.
you so
Hey,
much.
anytime.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Real pleasure. Okay, Henry. Through the side door. Yes. Thanks again, Joe. Henry S. Campbell,
Yes.
the man himself, the guy responsible for this
Yeah, he's
right here behind
Yeah,
us here.
that-
Tell us about
BB-8.
this.
If you're not in the know, that's BB-8 from the new Force Awakens Star Wars trilogy. And when I saw him on film, like most things, you just want one. And
Most of us do, but most of us can't make one.
Right. This was the project that got me here. I heard about their 3D printer, and it was a local made one. It was a large 3D printer, 12 by 12 by 12 inches, and all these parts are huge. So I had to, I got into it, and there is a BB-8 Builders Club, and I signed on, made the agreement with Disney and all that, and it's for nonprofit as well. So I brought a nonprofit to another nonprofit, and started printing this guy January of 15. Right? 16. 16, I apologize, yes.
January 16, that'd be a year and a half ago.
Yes.
Thereabouts.
Roundabouts.
Yeah. So,
And it was a long progress. I made a lot of mistakes and learned from everything, and I'm actually doing this as a bit of a part-time job now.
yeah, and as Jerry said, there's an entrepreneurial path that seems to be opening up for you.
Yeah.
As a 3D printer.
Operator, I guess you'd
Guru.
say. Yeah,
Yes.
I wouldn't go guru as far. Chris is definitely the man who made the machine.
Okay.
He's on top of that.
Now, is that Chris with Fusion? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We have 2 of his models.
Who
here.
also got started here.
Yes, that is
I
correct.
just heard from Joe. Nice.
And-
Wow, that's very cool.
So, yeah, this
And
is-
you're doing some work for Boxcar, I understand.
That is correct. They're opening an event space in the back, and they wanted some sort of tchotchke to put something on the bar and like put candy or something in it, and so I printed out some coal cars to a size that they need, and finishing up, and they're going to hand them off to their artist to get them painted.
Nice.
And it's going to be real realistic with like tiny graffiti on it and everything. Yeah.
Very cool.
So I'm excited to see that project
That's
finished.
very cool. Now, you're a Greensboro guy from the get-go.
Yes, born at Cone Hospital.
Yes, as was I.
Right on.
We have that in common, Cone brothers. And where'd you go to high school?
Grimsley?
Me too. Where'd you go to junior high?
Kaiser.
Yeah, me too.
Wow.
That's strange.
I mainly did music in high school and all that, so I
You had a
didn't.
band?
Hmm?
You did music, or were you in
Yeah, I was in orchestra and band.
orchestra? Okay.
Yeah.
What instrument?
Upright bass and orchestra, and the drum line for Grimsley, and percussion for the
Nice.
concert band.
What fun! What fun!
Yeah, Forrest Munden. Yeah. If he's still, I'm not sure if he's still around. It's been so long.
I remember that name.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. Mr. Mumbles. Anyway.
Yeah. And so you stayed in Greensboro.
Yeah.
You glad?
Yeah, it's been full of different experiences. If someone has lived here for his whole life, 37 years, I have reinvented Greensboro many a time for myself.
Oh, tell us about like back when you were in high school or maybe younger. You said you would come downtown. What it was like?
Yeah, my kind of the joke in my repeating line is that in '92, when I was 12, the downtown nightlife of Friday was just me, my bike, a couple of homeless people, and a few cops, and that was it.
Was it fun?
Oh, there was some. They built some pretty cool things to ride around.
Yeah.
The parking deck swirl, the spiral there was. I've gotten into a bit of trouble, I guess you'd say.
That's awesome. So the Forge has really figured into your life in a fairly major way, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of reinvented it. I was thinking about moving over to New York, where my sister is, or one of my best friend lives in Seattle, and I got into this project because I'm determined. And it sort of helped me reinvent Greensboro one more time.
Good.
And I really appreciate Andy for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
No worries.
We're going to wrap up here and move on with some other guests, but I didn't expect to see you here for one thing. My daughter knows you.
Yeah, yeah.
Had
Rosie
already told me about you and your Star Wars projects.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was very cool to find you here today. Thank you for jumping in and just joining the live stream like that.
Hey, no worries. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Be well, mate.
Henry S. Campbell.
Resumes as we get close to Elm Street. I don't know the owner here, but this little store called Realigned, my wife likes it. I don't think I've ever been inside because when we come downtown, I'm usually walking the dog, but it's a cute store. Antique store, gift shop type of place. And across the street, a bar that I think is really very cool. The Bearded Goat as an outdoor area. And it's just a really cool place inside. Bearded Goat. And here's a place called Oregon's House of Taps with a lot of outdoor seating. In fact, the city and or the owner, I don't know which or both, built this recently. Built this entire outdoor seating area. It's really very nice. The House of Taps. From this corner of Lewis and Elm, going that way, north, you head north. And it was the development of this section of Lewis that's particularly impressive, I think. This building, we're straight ahead at the bottom, was recently developed, restored and developed by Andy Zimmerman. And at the bottom down there is the location for downtown Greensboro. Table 16 is right there. Elsewhere is down there, and Mellow Mushroom down this way.
I'm ready. My social media game is going to be so strong after today.
Artmongers. Mellow Mushroom really brought a kind of a solidity to the South End that it needed. It's a popular place and the food's great. Everybody knows Mellow Mushroom. And this is an eclectic joint called PB and Java, where there's a lot of stuff going on, including the Poetry Cafe.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the little walk down Lewis. We're here with Carl Mize, a clothing designer and writer, and I have a feeling he's into some other things as well, some other crafts and skills. For one thing, he teaches some textile classes here at the Forge. And so I wanted to get acquainted with Carl. We go back a ways. You do some casting.
Yes, I do. I have had a modeling and talent agency for a number of years. And
Okay,
so we booked out models and actors.
Models and actors.
And that's how I met you on a
That's
film
how
that
we
you
met
yes.
back a few years ago, a Lake of Fire film we were making, and you provided some, for me, hard to find actors, some Latino actors.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, from what I understand, at that time we were one of the few agencies that had a pretty diverse cast list. So
Yeah, thank you. Turned out great.
Yeah.
The guy that played Baldo, I forgot his name, but
actually his name escapes me now too, but he moved to Florida shortly
he
thereafter.
did.
Yeah.
I'll have to go look at the credits. He was good. He was good. He showed up. He did a good job.
He had a great time. He enjoyed it.
And we had that scene out by the lake. That's probably where you came out to the set.
Yes.
That night.
Yes.
Because that's when you met. Chuck said he met you that night too.
That's right. That's
Yeah, I
when we-
remember that night. It was a good
yes,
night. It was a
that
beautiful night.
It was fun.
Yeah, yeah, it was a good.
A lot of filming, a lot of beer, a lot of filming.
Yeah, well, beer was part of the scene, right? So
Yeah,
we had to
it
have
was
coolers
great.
of
That's
beer.
great.
It was justified.
Yes.
The scene required it. We couldn't afford like the fake beer. We had to get the real thing.
So that's always better.
And everybody had more. It was a party scene too. So.
Exactly.
All right, so let's talk a little bit. I know you said that you have a novel or two in progress. You have a screenplay. But rather than dig into writing, let's just jump right to what you're doing with clothing.
Yes.
And then we can talk a little bit about what you do here at the Forge.
Well, actually, the clothing, that's always been my passion. That's what I started out in. And actually, when I was in school, I wanted to be an architect. And I found out you had to go to school as long to be an architect as you do a doctor, because buildings will kill people. So I just took some of the same principles that you apply to architecture, such as proportion and measurements and that sort of thing, and applied those to clothing design. And I started my business right out of high school. And so I've had some great years, have had some ups and downs. You know, the whole NAFTA thing sort of hurt a lot of the apparel industry in this country. And but it also served, in one sense of the way, it was sort of an advantage for me because of the fact that I was able to ship my merchandise with a Made in USA tag, which made it attractive to a lot of clients.
Well, you also have a project involving textiles and the homeless.
Yes, I do. When I moved downtown in Greensboro about 3 years ago, I got real involved with the couple of the homeless organizations. And one of the particular organizations that I work with, we do a feeding every Monday night in front of the courthouse. And we have several restaurants that we have contracts with, and they provide, you know, the food. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things. As far as a common misconception among people is that most all homeless people have either, you know, drug or alcohol problems or that sort of thing. And that, you know, while there is a segment of the population that does suffer from that, that's not always the case. A lot of these people are suffering repercussions of maybe a petty crime they committed when they were 16, and this has followed them around for the rest of their lives. So the organization that I work with is called Reform Him, and the executive director of that is a lady named Sally Randall. And Sally is a product designer, and she's originally from San Francisco. And so what we did was we sort of, we kind of put our heads together, and we realized that what we're doing on the feeding is great, but it's almost just sort of like putting a Band-Aid on a temporary solution to a long-term problem. So what we kind of came up with is we're getting ready to open a cut and sew operation. I myself, this is going to serve as my contractor for my designs, but there's one particular part of the project that I'm working on now. We're in the process of designing a line of extremely high-end ladies' fashion handbags. And this is actually intended for the, I guess you would say, the 1% of the population, or the segment that would really gravitate towards this type of thing. And what we're doing is they will be limited edition. The bags will be shipped with a tag that will say, by purchasing this product, not only are you getting a beautiful bag, but you're helping someone achieve a better life, because I'm designing the bags in such a way that we're training the homeless how to make them. And this in turn not only sort of gives them a second chance, but it also gives them a sense of responsibility and you know, just a way of building their self-esteem and feeling better about themselves, which is really the bedrock of what anyone needs to be able to pull themselves out of a situation.
That's a great concept. It really is. And you're involved here at the Forge in teaching some textile classes. Is that right?
Yes, I do. I teach a textile class on Wednesday nights from 6:30 to. It's supposed to be 6:30 to 8, but sometimes we run a little over. It depends on, you know, how much fun we're having. But I really enjoy that, and it's you know, we've been trying to get the word out to make more people aware of it, because there actually are a lot of people, I think, that would enjoy getting into this, and but it's sort of a dying craft here in the United States.
And yet, you know, I found among some of the young people I talk to, there's just real interest in learning those crafts, those old crafts, those old skills.
Yes.
And learning how to work with their hands and make things.
Exactly, exactly. And you get a sense of accomplishment when you can, and this is one thing I try to impart upon the students, because the way I usually work with the students is we have sort of an orientation meeting when they first come in. Then I invite them to bring in a project of something that they would like to make, and I work with them on a one-on-one basis. So they get a real sense of accomplishment when at the end of the course they're able to say, look, I made this. And it actually also helps me because it's a great way for me to recruit employees for my design business.
Yeah, there you
So,
go.
yeah.
And you know their work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm training them on the forges, Dom.
So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our Viewmaster audience,
Yes.
our growing, burgeoning group Viewmaster
That's
audience,
right.
is going to know about your initial fundraiser.
Yes.
You're going to be going out and raising some funds to get this this textile project with the homeless, give it some traction financially, get it rolling. And when the time comes, we want to help with that.
Right.
However we can, okay?
Okay. Well, I do
we'll
appreciate it.
Post the link and talk it up and that kind of thing. Or
Well, that sounds great. I really appreciate it.
have, pop in here one day and talk to you about it or something like that.
Well, sounds great. One thing I would like to say is our ultimate goal for this particular project is we would like to become known as a manufacturer of luxury goods and eventually buy a 4 or 5 story building, have a retail store on the ground level, have manufacturing on the upper level, and then have dormitories where these people could live while they're working with us.
That's a great idea.
So
It's an ambitious goal.
it's very ambitious.
It's a mission.
But it's something that can come
It's a
true.
mission, and we need missions in life.
Exactly. That's what keeps us going.
That helps us get up in the morning.
That's right. That's right.
And go after life.
So
Well, Carl, it's a pleasure.
thank you so much for having me.
First time you and I have actually had a chance to sit down and get to know each other.
Yes, it is.
I appreciate you coming by
Thank you.
and talking to us.
Thank you.
All right.
So you can see how nicely this building's been restored. That's the building where downtown Greensboro is located. And we're going to head toward some other really cool joints. And we're just going to walk and talk for a minute. This is HQ Greensboro. It's a co-working space for entrepreneurs and others, small businesses. It's a beautiful place inside. Maybe we'll take a tour of that one day. Across the street, that's a Dixie Lock and Key. Somebody's going to do something very cool with that spot. One of the newer developments down here is this building. I don't know what it was originally. Eric Robert first developed it and did a great job, really. It's beautiful inside, and the back space is going to be a new music venue soon. And then Andy Zimmerman purchased it and developed it further in this new facade here and all this great woodworking and whatnot. Really dressed it up, and inside is the barcade. If you've never been to a bar arcade, you really ought to check it out. It's a lot of fun, and you can actually bring food and eat out on the porch there. And if you got kids, they can play arcade games. And over here, Greensboro Distilling. Very cool place. And what do? Vodka, gin, malt, single malt, rye whiskey, and bourbon. And their packaging is very nice. And this is the inside of Greensboro Distilling. Lime bikes. And here is Gibbs 100, one of the first places to pop up down here after the original location of the forge, which is in the same space that Greensboro Distilling is in now. Originally the forge was located there, but this is Gibbs. This is Gibbs 100, one of Greensboro's finest craft breweries. They make some really good beer. And then right over here on the other side of the tracks, as Lewis continues and ends at Eugene, is the new location for the forge behind those trees there. While we're headed to the forge, I wanted to mention that there's parking down here. This parking area was developed to serve the needs of people frequenting the south end of downtown Greensboro, and it's really a nice parking lot. It's paid parking. It's very convenient though, even though you got to pay for it. It's worth it. We want to go this way though, because that's where the forge is. And this is the forge. Also the home of Greensboro Project Space, where Adam Carlin works. We meet him on our very first show. The sledgehammers on the door. The Forge is a makerspace, and this is where our show is going to be hosted today. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that little tour of Lewis Street. We're in the Forge now, finishing up our live stream for August 23rd, and we're really fortunate to have Bill Norman with us. Bill is with the Norman family behind Greensboro Distilling, which is, as far as I know, the first distiller of liquors in Greensboro?
First legal.
First legal one. Gotcha. So, the Forge, in its current location, the Forge actually was in the same location that that Bill's distillery is in now, and that's where I first became acquainted with the Forge before it moved over here. And so they're on Lewis Street, right beside Gibbs 100, and right across the street from the Barcade. And they do tours. So we're going to ask Bill about that and many other things. So welcome.
Oh, thank you.
It's really good that you were able to just a short walk over.
Absolutely, glad to be here.
Yeah, you said that Andrew is taking care of gin and tonic night tonight.
Right. There's this week is Gin and Tonic Week in the Triad in Greensboro and Winston-Salem and the surrounding town. So there's about a dozen, 15, 16 restaurants that are participating, and there are really 2 distilleries that make gin in the area. And so you can go to each of these restaurants, and they each have a special concoction made from the gins, and you get to kind of see what they do with each of those gins.
Nice.
Yeah. So he's in Winston tonight, visiting 6 or 7 places there. It was my duty. I had to go drink gin last night. So I took it for the team last night, yeah.
So tell me about your gin, because gin's a very interesting drink. I don't know that everybody loves it. I mean, most people love a good gin and tonic, but Henry S. Campbell was telling me that your gin has a bit of a lavender.
It does. So gin has to have the predominant flavor of juniper berry or pine tree.
Right.
Ours is an American style gin. So in addition to that pine tree, we add orange peels and lemongrass. We add some lavender and roses, and then we add some spices. We have about a dozen botanicals in there. So all of our liquor we think of first and foremost, is it good to sip? Is it good to sip on its own? Then it makes a great ingredient in what you do. So ours, it's unusual to be able to take vodka or gin and just kind of pour it on the rocks and drink it, but both of ours are just really good for that.
Well, what's the name of the gin?
Emulsion.
Emulsion.
Yep.
And the vodka.
The vodka is Tiny Cat vodka.
How'd you get that name?
Tiny Cat is what we called our children when they were small. So about a dozen years ago, our family went to our first distillery in Seattle. We were on vacation, and for the first 20 years of my career, I was an executive chef. So when I saw the distillery, I just saw a big kitchen, and I thought, man, this is something I would love to do. And my wife and I were always going to make Tiny Cat vodka because we were vodka drinkers at the time. About 8 years ago, Andrew had graduated from college. He was a mortgage banker down in Charlotte, and came and said, man, I would love to do something different from what I'm doing now. And that's when we decided to open a full-blown distillery. And so he's taken the reins. He has developed all of our flavor profiles even for the vodka. You think of vodka as colorless, odorless, and tasteless, but it doesn't have to be that. So our vodka is a beautiful, creamy, round, smooth vodka it's great just on its own.
Wow, without giving away trade secrets, how do you get that roundness and smoothness in there?
As the alcohol's coming off the still, it comes off at temperatures, different temperature variations, and so we gather at the very front end of it, there's an alcohol called diacetyl that comes off that tastes and smells like melted butter. And so we catch that little bit of diacetyl. At the end of it then, and there are esters of fruit and vanilla, sort of like a raisin, before you get to the tails part of it, and we catch those too. So we take a large amount of just pure industrial alcohol that we get out of the middle. It's about 191 proof, or about 95% just pure alcohol. Then we mix these others on the front and the back end with it, and it just keeps it from being just an ingredient. It is great on its own.
Wow, it's good to hear. So if you're a vodka drinker, you know where to come and find some new vodka. It sounds...
And if you think you don't like gin, this is a place to come and try some gin, and you'll go, oh my gosh, I like this gin.
Nice. So let's just jump right. I want to ask you about your single malt and your bourbon, but I want to jump back to just a little bit of, spend a little bit of time on the family and just the fact that you've been here a long time as a family, right? And you have another business you're involved with?
Right. We own Needed Energy, which is a massage therapy practice here in Greensboro, and we've owned that for 20 years now.
Where's that located?
It's on Wendover Avenue, very near Moses Cone.
Okay.
And we've had that business for about 20 years. And so we have a massage school as well. That sort of allowed us that stability in that business, and we've always been very community oriented as a business there. We wanted to make sure that anything we did from that point stayed in Greensboro as well, because this is where our ties are in our family and our community. So that's when we decided to open the distillery about 8 years ago. And it's myself and my wife, Shelley. Our son, Andrew, is the distiller. Leslie, our daughter, manages all of Needed Energy as well, so they each kind of take care of both of those businesses.
Wow, that's great.
Keeps us all busy.
You must enjoy working with family.
Oh my gosh, I hear people all the time say, "Oh, I could never do that." It's fantastic spending time with your children as adults and seeing what they do and who they become.
Yeah.
Working with your spouse. It presents some issues, but she and I are both, although it's hard to see this, both of us are extreme introverts. And so at work, we do what we need to do. Once we go home, we probably don't say 2 words to each other, and we are okay with that. We nod at each other and both know what that means.
Well, you need some downtime.
Yeah, and we both appreciate it in the same way, which is just perfect. It's very harmonious.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And every couple can work
That's
together
exactly
like
right.
that.
And I hear that every day from people. I don't think I could do that, but it's a perfect match.
How do you do that? How do you do that? So, okay, great. So you've been in Greensboro 40 years. You and your wife and
right, and
you.
Yeah, both of us have been here. I'm from Texas originally. She's from Kansas.
Okay.
We met while we were both living in New York. She was in the city. I was upstate at the Culinary Institute where I went to school. We both moved down to North Carolina about the same time and met while we were going to massage school, actually. And so it's been a great adventure since then. So Greensboro is our home.
That's great to hear. The single malt. Let's jump into that.
Sure.
Because that's some challenge there, coming up with a single malt and a bourbon, I would think.
And a rye whiskey. So we've got 3
rye.
whiskeys that we're making as well. We make a bourbon, we make a rye whiskey, both straight, meaning they're going to sit in the barrel at least 2 years, and we're making a single malt whiskey. And single malt in our country means from 1 grain. If I was going to Scotland, it would mean from 1 distillery, but our single malt is more like an American whiskey, so it's going to be round and smooth. It's not going to be smoked like a Scotch. It's going to be a really good sipping whiskey. We have the good fortune of being able to dip into the barrel about once every 6 months and see where it is. So we are really pleased with what it's becoming.
So you can tell from month to month or every 6 months or what have you that what the barrel is doing to the flavor.
Absolutely. There are 2 things that have to happen. The barrel has to give it what it needs to give it, which means the color, the taste, the nuances of all of those flavors as it seeps, those charred sugars from the oak seep out in. But because the barrel is porous, that alcohol has to let go of some things as well. It has to oxidize. It has to become mature and round. And so 2 of those things have to happen. And
you have to have the palate. That's the thing.
Oh my.
You really have to have the refined or experienced palate to be able to pick up those more subtle notes.
Thank goodness for Andrew, because he's the one that has the palate in all of this. But we're
Even
really,
though you're the executive chef.
yeah, I come in and make a mash every day. So I do the cooking part of it. For me, I come in and make 300 gallons of gravy every day, and then he takes it and turns it into what we really, Shelley and I both have had to learn how to drink brown spirits, because that was never really our bailiwick. Understanding the nuances, we go to a lot of distilleries. There are times where our house looks like a frat house because we've just got 30 bourbons out and trying to get the subtle nuances between each one. But then it really becomes about understanding the science behind it as well, and what makes it do each of those things.
Sure. So tell us about the bourbon.
Sure. The bourbon is...
Bourbons are extremely popular now.
It's coming back, absolutely. It went through a lull about 20 years ago, and so ours is a high rye bourbon. So we've got corn is going to be round and sweet, rye is going to be sharp and spicy, wheat is going to kind of be mellow. So you can bourbon has to be at least 51% corn, has to be made in the United States, at least 51% corn, and then it's how you finish it that defines your bourbon. So we use high rye content. So ours was round and sweet on the front, and then a nice spicy finish on the back end of it. Bourbon also, as does rye whiskey, when we put it in the barrels, those barrels have to be made from American white oak, and they have to be brand new barrels each time. So you can't use a used barrel. It's a one-time use for bourbon or rye whiskey. So we try to put back 2 or 3 barrels a week right now. We've run out of room where we are, but we've just located some warehouse space, about 5,000 square feet, that we'll have in about 3 weeks. So we'll really start putting a lot of barrels back now.
Nice. What's the name of the bourbon?
We don't know yet. We think we know. Our trademark lawyer is checking into all of that to make sure that we can do it, but it's a beautiful story that represents Greensboro as well.
Wow.
So all of our whiskeys will have the same name, and we're excited and hope that we can follow through with what we're thinking it's going to be right now.
Good.
It's not only a history of Greensboro, but it's a history of ours as well, and so we're excited about that. But everything is a fainting goat spirit. Everything has a neck tag on it that says fainting goat spirit.
So, okay, your Greensboro Distilling, that's the company, and Fainting Goats is your brand?
Is the brand, that's right.
The umbrella brand.
Fainting Goat Spirits makes Tiny Cat Vodka and Emulsion Gin and our whiskeys and bourbons.
The upcoming ones.
Soon to be named.
And before we talk about your tours, because we have to tell people about your tours, your first brown is coming out when?
Christmas of this year, we'll have our single malt whiskey out.
Do we have a debut party?
Absolutely, we will. We'll have an event. Right now we distribute in North Carolina in about 70 counties. We're in about 250 stores in North Carolina. For our single malt whiskey, we will start in Greensboro, in the 16 stores in Greensboro, and then we're able to sell it at the distillery as well. So at a distillery, you can purchase 5 bottles per person per year. And we keep track of all of that, absolutely. So we want to make sure that for our debut, we have plenty in-house that we can sell as well. And all of our bottles are batched and numbered, so batch 1 is always available in the distillery when we get started.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let Viewmaster know when you plan your party. We'll send out a message for you. Okay?
That sounds great.
Let's talk a little bit about the tours.
Sure.
How does that work? That's something that the public can come and meet you and see what you're doing.
Absolutely. So it's Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, typically starting about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Fridays till 7, Saturdays till 6, and Sundays till 5. Tours are $10. You get to come through and take a tour, and I'm selling you the tour. I'm not selling you the alcohol. Gotcha. So the alcohol comes with the tour. So it's about a 10-minute tour. We talk about the grain, the fact that we use 16,000 pounds of grain a month of North Carolina grain. So it's a North Carolina product as well. We do the tour. We talk through all of the process. We get to taste the mash and do different things. And then we'll do a tasting, and we get to sample the products that are available now. Some of the whiskeys that are what's called white dog, which is before we put it in the barrel, so a completely unaged bourbon or a completely unaged white rye whiskey.
That's called white dog?
White dog, and yeah, sometimes it's as good as it sounds because it's the barrel is the magic. So it's got a little bit of harshness to it, but it is a rare opportunity to taste an unaged bourbon. It's an ingredient still for us that goes into the barrel. You sample in a beautiful little Glencairn whiskey glass that's etched, and then you get to keep that glass as part of the tour.
Nice. And those days are again?
Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
Okay.
Yeah, and on Fridays and Saturdays you can purchase bottles while you're there. Sundays we can't sell bottles because the ABC stores are closed.
And does that start at?
Starts at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, Friday and Saturday, and Sunday.
And Sunday.
But you can't buy a bottle on Sunday.
Can't buy a bottle on Sunday, or there's no telling what would happen.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't want the revenuers, whoever they are.
Oh man, and they're there.
Are they?
Oh
Keep
gosh,
an eye
yeah.
on. A lot of people are brewing stuff these days.
Yep. There's a lot of brewing going on. There's a lot of winemaking going on, but you can't distill even for your own consumption without a permit. And so, hypothetically, had we practiced before we actually opened the distillery, that would have been illegal.
Wow, can't even practice.
No.
You just got to jump right in.
You do.
That's a leap of faith.
Yes, unless hypothetically we made some whiskey at home.
Right, right. All right, so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Really, you were very gracious to run over and interview with us today, and I, for one, learned a lot. And
Good.
I've been very curious about your place and your family and what you're doing. You like Lewis Street?
Oh, it's just perfect. And we, Andy sought us out somewhat. We looked at some other properties, but the minute we looked at Lewis Street, we knew that this was the right culture for us here. It's just, it's laid back. There's a lot of culture. There's just a lot of good people that come down here, and I'm happy to be a part of that.
Yeah, Lewis Street's amazing.
It is. It's got a lot going on. And Andrew is excited about, he moved away to go to college, to come back to Greensboro and be part of some of the positive change that's going on in Greensboro. He's very excited about that, and proud.
It's an interesting time in the history of Greensboro, really. Speaking to Henry about when he was a young 12-year-old and really nothing was happening in downtown.
Right.
To see it today, by contrast, it's just, it's not a booming metropolis, but there is this bubble of activity. On weekends for sure, and many other nights of the week, you see more and more people downtown just coming out to experience this life of the inner city.
Yeah, and I'm happy to see that is here in Greensboro now.
Yeah,
again.
Me too, and to be a part of it. That's got to be exciting.
It is indeed.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, you bet. Thank you for having us.
Okay. This is Bill Norman with Greensboro Distilling. We're really happy that he was able to come visit with us today and talk to us. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be breaking this up into segments so you can watch them individually. Everybody take care until next week. God bless.